I will come back a stronger man. This land is still my home. What runs through your mind?
Ricardo's death changed me in many, many, many ways. And the journey of healing for me was very much the journey of recognizing, acknowledging, and surrendering to that change. And so when you ask the question about how the words "I'll return a stronger man" land on me, how they hit me, it's with all of that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Legacy Collective with Khanyisa. This is a platform where we speak about our legacies, those that have been given to us, those that we are living out to leave to the next generation. And today we're going to have a conversation between myself and someone I hold very dearly to my heart. We're going to talk about grief, death, and healing. This is important because it has existed for so long since the existence of time and has affected how we show up relationally, how we show up personally, and how the fibers of society is at the moment. And joining me today is Louisa Zondo, the mother of our beloved Ricardo, Riky Rick, and the author of a book called Dearest Mariki, a mother's journey through grief, trauma, and healing, where she pens down her journey of healing after losing her son, Riky Rick. Mom Louisa, thank you for joining me. Where am I finding you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Khanyisa. Today is a day of hope.
Yeah.
Openness and surrender.
Yeah.
I came in carrying with me the hope that you and I will have conversations.
Yeah.
They will take us where we need to be taken.
Yeah.
And they will offer to others what they need.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So yes, it's openness, hopefulness, and surrender.
I share the same sentiments. We are having this conversation, having had gone through what people term the greatest loss of all, losing a child.
Yeah,
is the greatest loss of all. I think losing any other thing doesn't really amount to losing a child. And today for me is quite difficult because I've spoken to different people on social media platforms and so on about losing my daughter, but have never really gone deeper than what, people just know as me having had lost my daughter. Yes. And today I am appreciative of the fact that you and I were able to come to a place where we sit and have this conversation. And more than anything, you were able to come and hold space for me to speak about my grief and my loss for the first time. And I think what's also more important is that you and I come from different generations. So we're different generations of mothers who have lost different generations of children. You lost Riky Rick as an adult, and I lost Mampekeng, my daughter, as a 7-year-old child. Yes. And although our journeys, I would say, have been quite similar, but quite different because of the intricacies of those journeys and what they are filled with. So where do we begin?
Yeah. And I like a lot of what you have said as we start this conversation because we tell our stories not because they are unique.
Yeah.
unheard of and spectacular. But we tell our stories because they offer to us and to others opportunity to touch things that from time to time we find we just are unable to touch or unwilling to touch. But as we do that, we also allow others to go into their own journeys, into their own stories, to make inquiries about their experiences and how they related to them and how those experiences changed them.
Yeah.
And so I think it is so very important to have this conversation.
Yeah.
You have not gone into deep conversation about your loss of Mpeki. And I hope that we will be able to go somewhere close into that in this conversation. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. When you say people and us have not been able to go into the places where, you inquire and so on. When I read your book, some of the things that I found was that it took you this big loss, this big tragic wound, to actually go into looking at the other wounds that you had for a very long time that had to come to the forth. And that has been the same experience for me. If you asked me if I had any wounds, any issues before the loss of my daughter, I probably would have said, no, I'm okay, I'm doing well, things are fine. Until up to this point where I have had to unravel a lot of other things about the journey of my life, who I am, where I come from, where I'm going, and so on. And as I was thinking about how I'm going to officially share the story of the loss of my daughter, I thought, let's go back and let me share the story of the life of this girl who was my daughter. And I met her when I was 19 years old. I was doing my first year when I fell pregnant. And in second year, March the 9th at 3 a.m., I gave birth to a very, very, very tiny little girl. To be honest with you, I didn't think it's a baby. I think it's something that's coming out before a baby comes out. Yes. Because she was this small. But I was also this small, right? And I've spoken somewhere about how when I had her and when I fell pregnant, I was in a state of nowhereness, where when I finished matric and I got this great results, and my parents thought the greatest thing to do is for you to go study something that is sustainable, was the word, right? And I didn't see myself there. I saw myself here. But I couldn't articulate what that looks like academically. And so I went on to study a finance degree that was very far away from, of course I could do it because I could, but it was very far away from my passions and how I'd seen my life. And in retrospect, I think that was my first loss, the loss of self. When I lost the woman I thought I was going to become, the young person who was going to be part of this media, all of this, and all of a sudden I'm in a class with a calculator and I don't know what's happening and where I'm going. And that was the first time I felt lost, and the first time I lost something tangible. And so when I fell pregnant, I always hear about people who fall pregnant and contemplate abortions and an end. That never came to my mind. I knew that that girl was here to save me. I was so obsessed with her. Throughout my pregnancy, I was hardworking, but I just knew that this life has been given to me, even though I didn't have the full picture of what really was happening. But I now had something to hold on to. I had something to love. And so she came, I continued my studies, and for the rest of my young adulthood, she became my reason to succeed. She became my reason to not do things, to do things. Decisions were all based on me being her mother and her her childhood and her well-being.
Yes.
And so as I leave her and I'm sure you'll relate to this, and I go to find work away from her and she's raised by my mother, I know that I've given her a good environment with my parents, my siblings, cousins, and everyone, and she's got a community. But all I've ever wanted in my young adulthood was to take her, was to live with her, was to raise her. And just as I get a chance to do that, I was this close to doing that. I was with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and we were talking about marriage. And I thought, finally, I get to take my child and I get to raise her. And on a fateful day, on the 21st of October, 2017, I am in Johannesburg and I'm supposed to meet my mother and her and my younger sister in Pretoria. There was a family function there. And we're supposed to meet there. I call them and I say, are you guys on the way? Have you left and stuff? I talk to my mother. She says everything is fine. We have left. And my mother's car had a Bluetooth connection. So every time I spoke to my mother, I knew she's listening and then she would jump in. And that day she said, Mama, did you buy me the cologne I asked you to buy me? And I said, no, I didn't. I'm waiting for you to come so you can choose the cologne you want. She was quite a big person. And she said, okay, please better do that because I'm tired of smelling like Stay Soft.
Yes.
Because everyone in my class smells like Stay Soft and I don't want to smell like that. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll see you when you come and we'll go and buy the perfume. And she said, okay, I love you. And I said, I love you too. I'll see you just now. And she said, no, Mama, later. Those words rang in my mind for years. And I wait for them. And my mom says, after that, she asked to have a song played. And that song was Amanda Black's Amazulu. She's told me that she liked the song. And I once asked her, do you even understand the song? Yeah. And she just laughed and walked away. And that's the song she sang along to. And she went to sleep at the back of the car. And that was the last time I spoke to her. And that was the last time my mom and my sister saw her alive. And the next time I call, the phone rings and doesn't get answered. I call a couple of times until a lady answers the phone and says, the people that are in this car have been in a car accident. They've been taken to a hospital. And I think, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I take my aunt and my brother, we go to Mudimula Hospital. Because one of the other messed up stuff that happened that day is that she died on the N1, exactly where her father comes from, in Naboomspruit. And so they had taken them to Mudimula Hospital. And when I got there, I asked the doctor, okay, I see my mom, I see my sister. Their eyes were open. That's what I was looking for. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. Where's my child? And the doctor says, let's talk about it. Come to the other room. And we go to the other room and I say, okay, so where's my child? And she says she's in Mokopane Hospital. We took her there. She didn't come with the others to the hospital. And I still think, okay, that's fine. I grabbed my keys and I said, okay, I'll go to Mokopane Hospital. And she says, no, ma'am, please just let's explain. And she says, the smaller one didn't make it. She died on the scene. And I felt the chair I was sitting on disappear. I stopped hearing what she was saying. I could still see her lips were moving. I could hear my lungs close in. It felt like a 3-step thing. My lungs did this and closed in. And I think I passed out. I passed out. And then I had to make calls after I woke up. I had to make calls. I had to call her father. I had to call other people. And I had to go into the room where my mother and my sister were because they didn't know. And I told them. My mother was sitting on a wheelchair, and I remember her response was, "I killed your child." And to this day, I don't think it's something I can take away from her. I said, "No, you didn't." I know that if the tables had to be turned in any way, I know that you would switch your life for hers. So I know you didn't kill her. But I also know that she lives with that on a daily basis. And so from that day, my life changed forever until today, as I sit with you here and relay the happenings of not just that day, but what has transpired to get me to become this woman that I am today. And going through that and going through the help I needed to sort of try and soothe the pain and live with the pain has gotten me to a place where I had to learn about more wounds I have and a lot of other things I needed to heal from. And then the desire to help other people to heal. And I'm hoping that we're able to do that today. So contrary to mine, people are sort of privy to what happened to your son. You've spoken about it multiple times on multiple platforms. You've spoken about it in the book. Yeah. When you see those words that we repeatedly see every year on the 23rd of February, that 2-sentence post that says, "I will come back a stronger man. This land is still my home." What runs through your mind or even your soul?
So, for me, Ricardo's death changed me in many, many, many ways. And the journey of healing for me was very much the journey of recognizing, acknowledging, and surrendering to that change. And so when you ask the question about how the words "I'll return a stronger man" land on me, how they hit me, it's with all of that.
Yeah.
It's with the recognition of the reality of that.
Yeah.
He is gone, but he exists in a different form.
Yeah.
He exists in my life. He exists in the lives of many.
Yes.
And I do have a very soft and beautiful embrace of the idea.
Yeah.
I'll return a stronger man. And I feel constant returning.
Yeah.
And the story of my spirituality has also this promise that there is
a return.
There is
the hope of a return.
However I may interpret it. I'm not one to take things literally, of course. I allow a lot of metaphoric sense to lift me up, guide me, and allow a lot of mystical sensations and understandings to be part of my existence. So, yes, I do find comfort in knowing that Ricardo continues in a different form. But that does not mean that I did not have to be helped in many, many ways to even find the strength to continue.
And we'll talk about those many ways. Yeah. I want us to go back to, obviously, even before the day this tragic thing happens.
Yeah.
I want us to go back to you as a mother,
Yeah.
as someone who was trying to look for a great life for your children.
Yeah.
When I read your book, there was a line where you speak about going to the UK to pursue your master's degree. And Sheikani was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
And Ricardo was about 14 months.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, it hit me somewhere, because in as much as I had an understanding that as a mother, that's what you were doing. You were trying to pursue a great life for yourself and your children. I couldn't help but wonder, as someone whose mother left to pursue education and have learned the impacts of that in my adult life, as a mother who left their child to pursue the same, I couldn't help but wonder what it must have taken. One, for you to do that. Two, what it must have taken from your children for them to be without you in those early years. So I want us to talk about that concept and how you have come to know it in your journey, because I think as life goes on and you roll with the punches, it's not really a big thing until you go deeper into the healing journey, and then you realize, oh, there's something there. There's something here. How do you think it affected your children?
I have come to understand, to see, and to experience the adverse effects of my parenting on my children. And that was a gift on its own. It was a gift on its own. And it's interesting that it is when I had to deal with the grief of losing Ricardo that I started on the journey of earnestly reviewing what that means to be Louisa's child for my children. I had always, as you call it, rolled with the punches, just continued with life. Even as you were telling your story, I saw patterns in me where it was just action, no review. And for the purposes of building a better life for them, for the purposes of just surviving, getting through what needs to be gotten through on a day-to-day basis. But of course, there comes a time and where everything crumbles and you just have to stop. And Ricardo's passing was, for me, the point where I couldn't just continue as I was. I had to stop everything. And looking back, there was a lot of guilt. A lot of guilt, such that I think I do mention it in the book, that there was even a cryptic sense, I killed my son. Looking back at what was important for Ricardo's healing journey, for Ricardo's sense of coping with life, and looking at my contribution and my focus in life. I did go through bucket loads of guilt, bucket loads of regret, and that sense of wishing it had been different. It's natural. It is normal for that to happen. And yet, experts who study these things from their various fields of expertise, be it psychology, philosophy, just looking at the history of humanity and so on, are all at one in saying that guilt is a concept. It's a concept that has place, and it does live in us as humans. What is important to recognize as well is that with any decision we make, with any change we bring in our lives, there will be guilt.
Yeah.
But we get stuck if we hold on to the guilt.
Yeah.
And we open up to coping with life and living in healthier ways if we sit with the guilt, examine it, and allow it to go.
How do you do that?
For me, it was literally the process of sitting with those thoughts.
Yeah.
And the thoughts ranged from first day I brought a child onto this earth. I had my first child at 19.
So did I. Yeah.
What capacity does one have to do this?
Yeah.
And the guilt.
And I guess there's a saying that you must find the space to not allow what you now know to imprison the you that didn't know.
Yes.
And I think probably some people try not to go into the knowing because they are scared it might. So once you know, when they say once you know, you do better. And yes, you can do better, but don't crucify the one that didn't know better. Our 19-year-old selves as mothers didn't know better. I think I went through that guilt as well, and it drove the whole of my adulthood. The guilt of even having a child with the person I had a child with drove me to look for an alternative, a better alternative throughout my whole adult life, because the guilt was eating me up to say, I could have had a child with someone who could show more love to this person. Okay, so now that I've got a second chance to fix it, I'm going to go around looking for someone who can love this person better than the other one. And I think I really did punish myself because of the guilt.
Yes.
But even with, and when you and I had a conversation offline before, you asked me why it has taken me so much time to let her go. And I think it was part of the guilt for me. I failed to let her go because I wasn't done. One, with crucifying myself, but I also wasn't done with correcting my mistakes. Whether it's mistakes of how she was raised, showing her that I'm a better mother, that I could do better, and that I could find her better. And so in my incapacity to let go of that guilt, I could not let go of her and her spirit. I think it took me a long time to do that. It's the guilt, it's the anger. It's the anger towards God, the anger towards life, and the anger towards this child. I had anger towards my child. And I don't think women talk about this, that I based my whole life on your well-being. I made decisions based on your well-being, and you die? Out of all the things you can do, you die? For me, it went as deep as this. when I went to see her for the first time after she had died, she was in a mortuary, in a fridge. And this might sound crazy, but I looked at her and I thought, after all the fur clothes I bought you and every attempt to keep you warm, you come and freeze in a godforsaken town that you don't even know. This is what you choose? I had that anger. Yours must have been a layered anger. How was that?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And just hearing you speak of the anger makes me realize that we hold anger in different ways.
Yeah.
And it may not have prominently, the emotion may not have prominently shown itself as anger. But as you explain how for you it related to Umpeki,
Yeah.
I realized that those emotions that I had about certain aspects could very well have been related to anger, and I probably was afraid to categorize them as anger.
Yeah.
But this sense for me of needing to break things.
Yeah.
I needed to break things, and the breaking was happening emotionally as well. I tell a story in the book about how after what seemed to be a highly spirited exposure to Mount Everest with Ricardo, I come back and I am filled with, it was rage actually. And I throw it at my family. I start with Temba, our third born son, who is coming to collect me with excitement from the airport. And I can't shake it out. I can't shake it out even when I come to Bianca and Ricardo's home. I can't shake it out. I cannot understand what's happening.
Yeah.
It probably was my holding of anger, but I had to find a way of letting myself out of that prison. I created a story that had to do with my connection to Ricardo.
Yeah.
And that story was about, I need you to always be with me. I need you to always soothe me. I need you to always show me that I can walk through everything that I encounter. And when I had created the story that he is holding me and saying, yes, I am here. Yes, I am here and I will be with you. I was able to go back to Bianca and say, Bianca, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And because I knew how I was lashing out at everybody by being in the state of rage.
Yeah. And you know what? This is even the reason why we're having this conversation, because a lot of families have fallen apart. I have heard so many stories of, even if it's my relatives and other people, right, where they relay what happened and the disconnect that happened between this uncle and that aunt and that mother-in-law and that. And you get a sense that these people were just grief-stricken and did not have the capacity to pull themselves towards themselves. And one of the things that I wondered, and it's an important conversation to have, because we have daughters and wives right now who are grieving their husbands, people that they lived with longer, know far better than their own mothers, have supported far better than their own mothers, and have gone to the other side. And there is this rage, and I think it's the rage you're talking about, of a mother, because I don't think it changes with being young or being an adult. And I couldn't help but ask myself, Khore, how did you keep yourself from pouring out unnecessary rage onto Bianca? You mentioned in the book that there were multiple times she called you when Ricardo was having depressive episodes. And even when she couldn't open the door of his studio, she called you and said, I'm scared. I can't open the door. I don't know what's happening. Please come. And I'm imagining that there could have been moments where you were saying, why didn't you call me sooner? Why didn't you see that he's not okay the night before? Etc. How did you pull yourself back from going there?
So there's one thing that everybody must know.
Yeah.
That there are many, many, many gifts that Ricardo left us with.
Yeah.
For me, one of the most precious ones is the person who is Bianca.
Yeah.
Because of the depth of gentleness, the depth of wisdom, the depth of authenticity in her.
Yeah.
So, I actually never had the sense even getting close to blame.
Yeah.
I had always relied on Bianca.
Yeah.
To shed light on what needed to be brought to light, and she did that. Therefore, these questions of why did I not see? Why did I not hear deeper, clearer?
Yeah.
Were about me.
Yes.
And how I received what over time Ricardo, Bianca had been sharing with me.
Yeah.
It had always been about how could I miss so fundamentally? After the fact, the seeing becomes so clear. And it's about it adds to the guilt. It adds to the shame.
Yeah.
It adds to the deep criticism of self. Yeah. But it never, I never had cause to
want to blame her.
To even think of blame.
Yeah.
And yet, with all this journey of holding all these painful and difficult things, being close to Bianca was a place where I would laugh and cry at the same time. And she had the comfort, the freedom, and she knew that I was a place for her also to laugh and cry at the same time. And Kumi's presence after Ricardo's passing was an enormous healing presence for me.
Yeah.
I crumbled in so many ways and I went to therapy with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys walk into therapy, you and Kumi, I think after a few months. Yeah. And you are there to find a way to find each other through this grief.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you uncover things that you were not prepared to uncover. things from your childhood and things that happened 25 years ago when you were 34 years old. Round about the same age that Ricardo passed away.
Yeah.
Maybe take me through the first day you walked into the therapy room.
Yeah.
And your intention was to try to find a way to heal from grief.
Yeah. Going into therapy in that way, actually going to see a therapist, sitting down for hours and being committed to stay in therapy was something that I had never done in my life. I had never, ever, ever done that.
And I remember that Kumi actually asked you multiple times in multiple years before to try to go to therapy, and you refused.
Yes.
Yeah.
It felt, and the language I had for that was not just a sheer refusal.
Yeah.
It when I sat down to speak to somebody who was speaking to me as a psychotherapist, it felt like I was being strangled. It really felt like I was being strangled, and I couldn't continue doing that.
Yeah.
And that was the reason I didn't go. I didn't stay in therapy after about 2 sessions following the home invasion that happened when I was 34, a few days after my birthday, my 34th birthday.
Yeah.
I only went for 2 sessions and I could not continue. But walking into the rooms of the therapist who now opens up to help us through the grieving for Ricardo was, I think, a predominantly scary process. I think I was primarily afraid.
Yeah.
I was afraid because I was aware that in relating to Kumi in this relationship, I was messing up, and I had been messing up big time.
Right.
And there was this possibility that a therapy process could lead to the dissipation, the ending of what could have been our relationship.
Yeah.
I was scared because in as much as I had gone into different ways of relating to the reality that Ricardo was no longer living here with us in that way, I was afraid of stories that I might bring up as a result of being healed in therapy.
Okay.
I was afraid of the stories that might come up about Ricardo not being around. And I think that fear was that I might be caused to lose the things that I hold on to, such as the sense that I'm being touched on the shoulder sometimes.
Yeah.
The sense that I am smelling my son next to me sometimes.
And he takes you through what you term in the book as memory work.
Yeah.
And you, 25 years later at the time, bring back a memory that you had blocked out. And that memory is that on a fateful day, men walked into your home while you were with your husband, and they invade your home. And when I read that chapter, it was just a home invasion.
Yes.
People just walked into your home, clapped Kumi around, Baba Mofa with stuff, and then dragged you out of bed and dragged you down the stairs, and later wrapped you in something, in a blanket. And then that was almost just it. You lost this, you lost that, and that was it. Until you had to do the memory work. And realize that you blocked out the one piece of information that you had actually been sexually assaulted that night.
Yeah. So
I'm so sorry.
thank you. What I have come to realize as I talk about my story, and it happened a lot during the book launch sessions, is that there are so many women who walk in life, and they walk boldly, beautifully, and generously with these wounds that they cannot touch. They cannot go into them because the unraveling that would happen if attention was given to that is hard to contemplate. So for me, the mind and the body shut this trauma out right from during the home invasion.
You kept saying, I fell asleep and I woke up. I fell asleep and I woke up.
Yes.
And only when I understood what that was, I then understood what the falling asleep was.
Yeah.
Was your body protecting you from actually experiencing?
So when I hear how the therapist explains it, and when I go on to read even more, indeed it is the body working with what it can work with.
Yeah.
Our therapist at some point said, imagine if the body had broken.
Okay.
If the mind had broken from engaging with that experience.
Okay.
And you had children that still needed to be raised.
Oh. Yeah.
And that was a perspective that gave me pause and opened up even more opportunity for me to deal with deeper compassion with this experience.
And it almost feels like it's a, you had to choose one of two things. To either be broken like that and still have to raise children in that brokenness, or to have your body protect you and close out every emotion that is hurtful that might come from that. And even that has its own repercussions. And we know them from even what Riky said to you, that you closed him out. Right? He wanted to know your story. He wanted to know about you more than what he knew. He specifically said that you would close yourself in a room, and he thought something was wrong with him, or he had done something wrong. And I also remember you said that when they lost their father, you expected them to move on.
Yeah.
And you never gave them emotional cues. You moved on from things very fast.
Yes.
You closed things out. And they didn't know how to deal with big things that happened in their lives, including their father's death. So it's almost like it was either this or that.
Yeah. And you are so right. It was weighing of
options.
What was a lesser evil.
Yeah.
And so my children bore the brunt of that closed in existence of mine, which had a lot to do with the trauma of the home invasion.
Yeah.
Such that when we went through the memory recovery process and sought now to share what had come out with the family.
Yeah.
We had this as a common response from the boys.
Okay.
Starting with, I call them by numbers, number 1 up to number 4. Yes.
Yeah.
And that common response was, now I understand. That explains it.
Yeah.
So whereas I thought that I was an open person and I was dealing with my things on the side so that I don't affect
in an
them.
adult way.
Yes. They were experiencing the damage of a closed-in parent.
Yeah.
And they were... My relationship with my firstborn son was very hard.
Yeah.
Because like Ricardo, he is loving, open, expressive, and he wants that. He wants to know what you are going through. He wants to be shared with.
And you would send him out.
And Ricardo was all about that. He thrived in close connection, and he always wanted to understand from an early stage. He always wanted to understand what is happening. And when I couldn't tell him the story of my life, because I just could not. I tried.
Not even to yourself.
It was not something that I was able to do. I was not able to tell. I was not able to talk about the story of my life.
Yeah.
He did feel the effects of that.
Yeah.
And it was very personal. Yeah.
And I remember hearing him say, I don't remember who had passed away, but I think it was an artist that passed away. And he said, when I was growing up, no one told me when people that I loved passed away, when Tupac passed away, no one told me.
Yes.
Right? So what I do deliberately is to tell my son that people have passed away.
Yes.
When I think it was WHP,
yes.
I told my son that he had passed away and so on. Yes. And when he said that, what I picked out from that was that he's probably trying to reparent himself with the emotional openness that he was looking for from you. And just trying to lay himself bare the way he maybe wanted you to lay yourself bare to him.
And I hold as enormous gifts the records of communication that Ricardo left for us.
Wow, okay.
Even expressing that, because yes, I also went through that interview where you were speaking about how important it is to be communicative, to share with young ones, and to build that capacity in children to explore what is available for them to attend to, and to do it carefully, though. You know, yeah. So I listened to that and I learned from that.
Yeah.
I listened to stories that he tells in interviews about the fact that as a result of me leading a life which was going everywhere in an attempt to build career, I uprooted him so many times. By the time Ricardo was 8 years old, by the time he was 9 years old, he was in his 7th school. He had changed schools 6 times, and he was in his 7th school.
Sure.
I had never been aware of that. I pick it up in an interview where he talks about a nomadic life. Where that just gives him, that gives him the treasures of being exposed to a huge world.
Because
and and yet removes from him the groundedness of relating fully
And
to
belonging.
what is present here.
Yeah.
So when he relates to the beauty, the experiences, it's with a sense that it
This
will
is
go.
gonna end. Yeah, sure.
And I was not aware of all of this. And I never sought tools to help him through all of that.
Yeah.
And it almost confirms a teaching that comes from one renowned psychologist, that the tragedy of humans is that we were children.
Ooh, okay.
So we have to survive the childhood. And so
hopefully heal from it.
And hope that's the intention.
Yeah.
We have to walk through journeys and heal. But if the adults like me come into awareness so late, we benefit from the grace of our young ones who understand that I came into awareness very, very late.
Yeah. Late is subjective. It really is.
Yeah.
And you're making me also appreciate. And I think the first time we met, you said the perspective you have about life and things around you is one that people have much later in their lives. And that stuck with me. Yeah. And I had an appreciative moment of the fact that even though I went through so much for someone my age to go through, but there's also the gift that I got from that, that other mistakes can probably be rectified now. And there's a little bit more awareness, and it's not too late, as you say it.
Yeah.
Do you find that you try to, and I've seen this with my mother when my daughter was still alive, do you find that you try to reparent your grandchildren and sort of fix these late mistakes that you are discovering?
So grandchildren are an impossibility to describe for a person who is not a grandparent.
Yeah.
I can never find enough words to lend meaning to what it is to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
But I've made a decision that for me, being a grandparent involves holding the parenting that the parents want to give to the children in a sacred place. I respect and hold it in a sacred space.
Yeah.
And taking my role as that of building this huge love container for them.
Yeah.
So that when they apply this idea that life is not about what we experience, but it is about the sense we make of that. How do we make sense of the tragic things we experience in life?
Yeah.
Once the grandchildren have a sense that I can always rely on the awareness that grandma is there.
Yeah.
And she is love, and that love holds me.
Yeah.
I think my job is done. Because that is what I try to be in their lives. I try to be a presence that just enables them to make sense of anything that they encounter. Yeah.
And I think
before I move away from that, I think it's this sharing that you did of the exchange we had about how your perspectives of life seem to have come so much earlier in the first half of life.
Yeah.
Whereas most of us come to understand life and to journey with this openness, to live authentically with anything that comes up in the second half of life.
Yeah.
I want to tie that with a question which leaves me very curious about your life, and that goes to Mpeki, which is, you do say you held onto her.
Yeah.
But there was a wisdom also that led you to open up to building your own life in a way that shows growth from the trauma of losing your beloved 7-year-old.
Yeah.
I am curious though about what that holding on means for you. How did you hold on, and how did it hold you back? Yeah.
So I think I got stuck in denial stage for a long time. And I think it's because she didn't stay with me. So I sort of convinced my mind over time that she's still with my mother. I just can't access her. I just don't call as much as I used to anymore. And that protected me for a little while. But also there was the activity then of getting married. Because I think I got married just a year after losing her. And the real yearning and the internal plan was that she's frozen. I saw her frozen in the mortuary. She's going to come back. I'm going to get married. And this time I'm going to have to create a good environment. And she's going to come back into this environment as a young child, as a newborn. And I can love her again. I can give her all that I didn't give her. And so the holding on was mostly the holding on of hope that it can be redone, that I can get a second chance to do it. What I didn't realize is that holding on was holding me back. Because fast forward 7 years later and 6 years into my marriage, after going through almost every accessible process there was to go through to attempt to have a child, I did not. And I still don't. And I know now that there may have been a couple of things that have happened. And one of them is delayed grief. Only when I started writing and just pouring out this loss, because that's the only time I actually got to get the courage to grieve, was when I started writing parts of my book. And when I did that, I started to realize that I haven't mourned this child. I instead just parked the grief, and made it an alternative plan to have her back. And for 7 years, that's what I've been doing. You know what's crazy? On the 23rd of February, 2022, when we learned that Ricardo was gone, I was due that day for an IVF egg retrieval. It's funny, in my phone, I think I showed you the other day, that there's a picture of Ricardo in my phone, and then the next picture is a picture of two small overalls, because we were hoping for twins. And that day we were going to do that. And I remember whispering silently and saying to my daughter, okay, thank you. Uncle Ricky went to the other side. Please come back and make space for him. Because I just had the hope the whole time that eventually he's going to come back. she's going to come back. And even when I attempted over and over again to have children, I don't think I ever even had a picture of the kind of child I want to be, that I want to have. You know, my daughter was darker skinned than me because her father was, and my husband is not. But not anywhere did I ever imagine my children to not be dark skinned. Because those were not the children I was looking for. I wanted my child back.
Yeah.
And if it was going to be a daughter, that would have been great. We'll just play house and pretend that she never went anywhere and now she's back. And in retrospect, that process not succeeding gave me, my husband, the children, grace. Because I can't imagine what it must be like to come into the world and you are someone else's replacement. I don't know what alignment that would have looked like, but I know that that would have been wrong. Does it make things easier and better? No. Do I still want my child back? Yes. Even with the wisdom and understanding that it's not possible, I still do. And I can't tell you now that I am over wanting her back. I'm not. But I also know that one of the things that happened to my body is what people have come to term womb trauma, where the body just says, okay, giving birth has cost us this much pain once. This is not what we're doing again. We're going to close up and leave it at this. So that's why I say multiple things I feel must have happened. On a physical level, on a psychological level, and on a spiritual level. Because I myself went through multiple spiritual journeys. And I also got the relief at some point and the ability to let her be a spirit. Yes. I struggled with that. I didn't know how to do it. But I've come to a place where I've allowed her to be a spirit and have allowed her to still exist and continue to be in my life without the physique I require. I get the physique from hugging her jersey that I still keep in my wardrobe. And I get the physique from this weird existence around me of her. Some people see her walk around with me. It's crazy. On a spiritual level, I don't try to understand it. And like I said before, it's the most soothing thing, and you don't know how to describe. And I don't go into it because I don't want anyone to say it's a demon walking with you or you are crazy and you're imagining things. It's just a soothing thing that walks with you over time. So that's what the holding on for me was. And that's what the holding on has costed me. And I want to believe that it also got us here. Yes. It got us here. Yes. Because the loss of my fertility, and I call it the temporary loss of my fertility, was also a big loss by itself. It's loss that I lived with for the past 7-8 years. And it has given me perspective, has given me new lessons. Yeah. And I sit here as a mother. When I introduce myself at spaces regarding this kind of conversations, I say that I'm a bereaved mother, having had lost a child, and I'm also a mother in waiting, waiting for children to mother. That has been a difficult journey, but that has been the journey for me.
And I love the fact that you are also honoring the growth that is happening at the same time as your bereaved state and awaiting state walking along with you. The growth that is happening. Legacy Collective is a growth symbol. It's a place where you are living out the growth in you. For me, the growth came in various ways. The telling of the story was a huge, great growth point for me. Publishing it in the book was enormous for me.
Yeah.
Because from being unable to even talk the story to telling it
to the whole world,
and then telling it openly with all the ugliness in my life, putting it out there was a huge thing. But then there is another element, realizing what presence I want to be in the world.
Yeah.
And that took me more and more into these journeys of contemplation, the journeys of walking with others, with going into our inner being and walking inwardly, understanding what we are holding, what's available for us there. Yeah. And as a result, just a few months back, I opened up to becoming a meditation teacher.
That's amazing.
And so that's a huge growth for me. I had been sitting in meditation with others, but never ever would have offered myself to use the loads of training that I'd been gathering over time to actually put myself out.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think it even goes over and above that particular thing of meditation.
Yeah.
You sat with me on a Sunday, on the 3rd anniversary of your child's death. Yeah. And I told you that if you said to me that day, Khanyisa, I can't breathe, I will see you next year. Yeah. I'm not doing this, I would have understood.
Yeah.
Because I know what it takes. And for me, that was testament to the journey you have journeyed and the growth thereof. Yeah. Because being able to hold space for another at one of the most critical days of your journey says a lot about where you are as a grieving mother, as a person that have found their purpose through pain, etc. And so I think that's amazing.
Yeah. It actually does feel like this is work that Ricardo is smiling about.
I told you about the 2 beds. So yes.
So when I am involved in the Riky Rick Foundation for the promotion of Artivism, and we are talking about how we're going to move in establishing a fellowship program, and we're struggling with that, but we have the sense that this is something that's going to be beautiful, that we are going to be able to do.
Yeah.
It always gives me that sense that Ricardo is smiling at it and saying, now you're doing it. Yes. Yeah. Yes to that. When we're talking about convening creatives and supporting them so that what they put out actually contributes to the change in the world, the change we want to be, the change we want to see in the world. And we call it Artivism. Yeah. When we're doing that work and we're having these convenings and annual convenings, I have this deep sense that Ricardo is smiling and saying yes.
Yes.
And so you may think it's me. I have a sense that it's something bigger.
He's also gathering resources.
Yes.
And here's why I'm saying that. I mean, we have spoken about this.
Yeah.
I've told you about the dream that I've had where your son and my daughter were actually holding hands and were coming to me and they were saying that they're friends.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And one of the things that people didn't know, even my mother didn't know, was that my daughter, the year she died, had said to me that I asked her what she wants to be when she grows up. And she said to me, I want to build a big house. And I want all the children who are with their mothers on the streets to come live in that house. And I thought, what do you want to be when you okay, it's fine. Okay.
Yes.
Right? Because I already understood the work of philanthropy and activism by that time, and I understood where her heart was coming from. What I didn't know was that she was speaking as an angel. Right? And when you say that when you have a knowing that Ricardo is for this, what you are doing, I'm also saying that I also know that he's galvanizing resources for it, because these two have met.
Yeah.
These two people from Tefliop have met, and I am one, excited, and two, humbled, but by what we are going to see in the physical realm that they have put together to continue their legacy. Yeah. Their legacy of giving, of love, of pouring out themselves to other people. I think that's what it is. I interpret it that way.
Yes.
With what we've seen and how we've come to sit here today. Yeah. Speaking of the foundation and the kind of person he was, how was it to grieve your child as an intimate figure to you, with millions of other people who knew him, loved him, cherished him from different aspects of his life? I mean, as someone called him the president of the youth. He has a lot of names, right? And as an artist, a brother, a public figure, and there you are as a mother that holds him dear in a different light. How was that like?
I know that my response to this question is not always in line with what people would have expected it to be when they ask it.
None of this is in line with what is expected.
And it has been asked quite a lot.
Okay.
It has been asked quite a lot. And from a place of empathy for me.
Yeah.
And our family, the sense that something is lost for us and our process when so many others are attached to the grieving process.
Yeah.
And my experience is not of anything being lost. My experience instead is characterized by this thing which I've always said from the first day when people came to Ricardo's home and after the news broke, to say, I did not realize how big a family Ricardo's life created for us. Because when I looked at the outpouring of love, the crumbling grief that people were going through, it felt to me like a realization that this is what Ricardo has given us. Ricardo has given us enormous family. This is family. So that's how I hold it even today. I held it from the first instance and I hold it even today, that our family has been given a gift of openly grieving with many, 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 not only in South Africa, but across all shores. Yeah. And that's a gift. Yeah.
That's actually amazing.
Yeah.
Over and above that gift of the outer family that he gave you, you also had the secret pals.
Yes.
Right. And I want us to talk about friendships that sustain us in this path. You speak about your secret pals, who are your close friends that you've shared moments of light, joy, and darkness with over the years.
Yes.
And when they arrive at the scene, you melt, because finally there are people that can hold you.
Yeah.
I have secret pals in the room today as we have this conversation. I have 3 of my secret pals in this room.
Yeah.
Those that I've picked up along the way that were gifts for me in this journey. One has even flown from KZN because we are having this conversation and she knows what that might do to me. And she's here to hold space for me. How has that played a role so far? But also, how has the grief contributed negatively or positively to how you relate to friends?
So, secret pals are a presence in my life that is just so nurturing in so many ways. In fact, our Facebook group is not called Secret Pals, it's called Sacred Pals.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that is as a result of one of the mothers looking at us and saying, you guys are not secret pals, you are sacred.
You're sacred pals.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, because I know because I read your book.
Yes.
Sacred pals are friends, lifelong friends that you made from boarding school.
Yes.
And that have lived with you throughout until here.
And others have joined in the same spirit, even though we're not together at boarding school. And we just a group that cares, that builds, that has fun, that is creative. And so that's what it is about. It is a circle of love, care, kindness. And we have evolved over time to be primarily that. And there is very little of the sensitivities that come from friendships getting strained in any way. So the grieving process has contributed to the strengthening of these relationships. The grieving process has contributed to the strengthening even of my family relationships, because we had to contend with the realities that all is not well in our relationships. The communications was non-existent, and we couldn't continue pretending that was the case. The addiction that is in our family, and I bring it from the paternal and the maternal line. There is a history of addiction. These things were no longer going to be glossed over. They were going to be encountered with love and truth. And when truth is involved, it's not always comfortable. But it builds the relationships.
And I would say that's the legacy of healing that Ricardo left for your family. For you and for your family. I have a slightly different thing that came to my mind in terms of friendships. And there's something that haunted me for a few months that happened. So a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, who she and I have shared a lot of things together, right? She knows that any day she can call me and I will show me where the body is and we'll bury it. And she comes to me with a situation around her daughter. And what she does know or may not even be cognizant of is the fact that her daughter and my daughter would have been the same age. Right? And she comes to me with this issue that she has with her daughter, and she says to me, look, you are the most sensible person who can talk to this girl. I need you to please sit her down and speak to her. And I said, okay. How? Okay. I'm the aunt. Come, let's talk. And my body froze. I, for 2 days, could not understand what's happening to me. I fully just went into a cocoon and I couldn't understand why. I looked around for other reasons that are not the real reason. And I realized that there was still a lot of work to be done pertaining to grief. And the guilt I carried was just letting my friend down. And the you know, this thing where you have empathy for other people and understand the things that they go through, but you don't trust that they will understand the things you are going through.
Yes.
And so it took me a lot to sit my friend down and say, you know what, I've blocked out because of 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
And she understood.
Yes.
And I thought, I wonder what perspective people have around us who are grieving this way, and how much of it is often communicated.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
What has this changed for you? The whole loss. What, in terms of perspective, has it changed fundamentally in your whole life, outlook of life and system?
Yeah. So when we started this conversation, I spoke of how hard-hitting pain, grief, and trauma is on me now following this enormous loss. And own personal trauma of rape, basically. And therefore, I have had to learn to attend to what I need. What will work for me. And I've learned to not expose myself too much to being caught off guard. It has been physically dangerous to be caught off guard. There was an instance where news was delivered of the sudden passing of a young man who was on his way to his wedding, and it was the wedding of with a young woman that we hold as our child in the friendships that I have. And that news was delivered. I hit the ground just because I was not prepared. I was not sitting down. I hit the ground and I landed in hospital where they had to do investigations because I had developed a huge swelling at the back of the head. So it is dangerous, and I'm aware of that. The way I receive exposure it requires me to be attentive and to take care of myself, to always have the container. I am aware of re-traumatization. I am very aware of it. I've learned this. I've been taught to be aware
of it
and hold myself in deep care all the time. Yes. So when your body freezes, it's because our bodies, we always throw around the title of this book, The Body Keeps the Score. But indeed, our bodies are our huge ally, biggest ally. They tell us everything that is there for us to be aware of. So, yes, it is something that I am heightened to. I'm always aware. And sometimes in conversations, I have to apply techniques, quick techniques. For example, if I'm not expecting it and a message of trauma comes in and I feel it's hitting me, I find ways of literally using my eyes to get out of this situation and not being caught up. So I literally look around the room, I find a window, a door, and I literally go out using just that power of coming out of this situation. Otherwise, I am likely to break down, fall, whatever. Is
that not dangerous?
Yeah.
Is that not dangerous? I and here's why I'm saying this. I felt myself do it a couple of times, even in this conversation.
Yes.
Where my body was saying, don't go there. This is too much. And I sort of wanted to find a way to get out of the room.
Yes.
And because I'm aware
Yes.
that that's something I can do, I kept
Yes.
pulling myself back
Yes.
into this sitting very presently.
Yeah.
I want us to go into the work. So for any woman that has gone through what you and I have gone through, where would they start to start the healing work without the resources that we have been exposed to? What do you think is even if it's the big work or the small work, what do you think they can do to get to a place where they are on a healing journey?
I think there is a lot of advice that can be offered.
Yeah.
There is a lot of support that can be offered to people who are experiencing grief and not necessarily aware of what it looks like, what to expect, where to go for support, and the first step probably is to have a place where we feel we can say, I am not coping.
Yeah.
I don't know what I need
But I'm not
right now. But all I know is my world has crumbled.
Yeah.
I'm not coping.
Yeah.
And whether we say that at a group of friends that we hold in places of trust and who care for us, whether we say that in family that we are able to lean on and expose our deepest things to, whether we say it in spiritual communities where we trust that there are people who, one, have the capacity to offer the care that we need, whether it's pastoral or any other way, or they can refer us to places where professionals may be able to even help us in traditions that are, medical, the Western ways of healing.
Yeah.
Or we have family who can hold us in our own traditional ways of healing and help us to connect, to make sense of the time of grief, which in many instances is impossible to make sense of.
Yeah.
It's about knowing that grief throws us off balance.
Yeah.
And accepting that we have to attend to being off balance. Yeah. That if we avoid that step and just continue as if nothing has happened, we will trip over ourselves in ways that will be perhaps even more catastrophic than walking with the grief. And so all of us, whether we have money or not, all of us perhaps should allow that process of sharing with a trusted place, a trusted person, what we are going through, and even if we just sit with that person to make it better.
And as a mother to a very influential young man who we love and miss, that has touched the lives of millions of people across the world, what message do you have for young people who are now left with you, who have struggles that you have come to know that your son has had?
Yeah. Young people need to know that they are critically important for the survival and the thriving of humanity. In South Africa, 63%, around 63%
Yeah.
of people are below the age of 35. In the continent of Africa, around 65% of the people are below the age of 35.
Yeah.
These are young people.
Yeah.
And so it just starts with that awareness that they are valuable. Young people are valuable.
Yeah.
Life may not tell them that all the time,
So, yeah.
but it is, in spite of all that they experience, it is real truth.
Yeah.
And so there is a need for us older people to open up the space
Yeah.
for us to learn
Yeah.
to speak about the issues that are central to young people
Yeah.
in ways that resonate with young people. Mental health and well-being is one of the biggest scourges globally. It is a scourge that is destroying the lives of young people in particular.
And I think that's something that I've learned, that we both have learned, that our children need more than anything.
Yeah.
Thank you for pouring yourself out in this space today. Thank you for holding space for me today. And thank you for allowing me and helping me to bear the light for many other women today that are going to watch us share our lives. So you and I have penned down a tribute to our children. And in closing, I'm going to just read it. The legacy of healing. Dear Ricardo and Mampekeng, our beloved children, as we sit together today, in our hearts, the ache is deep and the loss is still heavy. There's love that whispers softly, calling your names. Your light will forever be one that we honor. And even though you're no longer here with us physically, the lessons you taught us continue to guide us, helping us to heal each day. You left us a legacy of healing, a legacy of love, resilience, and transformation that has made us whole and mended our fractured souls. In this journey of grief, we have found strength in one another, two women bound by love and loss, yet united by the hope that healing is possible for us and for many other mothers who have wailed and longed as we have. That they too might find the sense of connection, understanding, and strength in navigating this journey. We think of you, we feel your spirit. In every second of every day, we embrace the journey of being angel moms to you forever. Love, Louisa and Khanyisa, your mothers. Thank you. And this has been the Legacy Collective with Khanyisa. Stay shining. Goodbye.